All right, so we are sitting down. We're chatting. We just finished up May the 4th, the made-up Star Wars holiday, celebrating Phantom Menace in 3D. We have a guest on today. We always have a guest. Would you mind introducing yourself and how you came into the Star Wars fan community, and if you are a real fan?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. My name is Alex. Uh, the Star Wars fan community I entered 2002. It would have been. Um, I unpurposefully saw Attack of the Clones 6 times in theaters. Uh,
Unpurposefully. Well, I'm gonna stop you
Unpurposefully.
there. What does that mean?
I went with the family. I knew about Star Wars because it was just a movie to see, and then grandparents took us without realizing we had seen it. I think I went to two different birthday parties where we saw it, and then we went to a drive-in movie theater that was supposed to be showing Shrek 2, and instead the reel was messed up, so we saw Star Wars Episode 2.
Somebody once told me about that one as well.
Yeah, but from there, I kind of got hooked. I met a neighborhood friend who introduced me to all the toys. I think he had most of the Shadows of the Empire stuff. So from there, I was hooked. I think I qualify as a real Star Wars fan. I've challenged my friend groups to a 5-on-1 trivia contest, so I'm fairly confident in my knowledge.
I had an actually similar experience when I was younger. This would have been in, oh gosh, I'm confusing it, but this would have been some point in the 90s. And my cousin had a teacher who was a big Star Wars fan, a very proud Star Wars fan, and he would say, all right, as extra credit, every time there's a test, if you can stump me in a Star Wars trivia challenge, you get an extra like a point or whatever on the test. And my cousin said, no one can stump this guy. So I'm like, all right, you ask him next time there's a test. Who is I even forget now, but who's the third guy on the left in the medal ceremony at the Battle of Yavin at the end of A New Hope, the one with the curly mustache? And he's like, yes, I got 5 points. I still failed the test, but I
Yeah,
got 5 points more. Uh,
I wasn't aware that all of them have names. All I know is platform shoes guy.
oh, so now I have a follow-up question, which is, so you started with Attack of the Clones. Had you not seen anything ever before that?
Prior, I don't think so. I really don't, because I don't have much of a recollection watching episode 4 or 5 for the first time. But I remember being in my dad's apartment and we're watching the sail barge scene, and you see the guy pull down his mask, and my dad's like, "Did you see this Lando Calrissian?" And so,
And you're like, who is that?
yeah, that would have had to have been the first time that I saw it. I feel like I knew this story before I watched everything, but
So like cultural osmosis.
yeah, more than likely.
Hmm. Yeah, I think my first memory of seeing any of those movies, I didn't even know it was Star Wars at the time, but I remember the sail barge scene in the desert where uh, stuff has kind of gone down and Boba Fett's flying in on his jetpack, but I mostly remember the faraway imagery of everyone fighting on the various skiffs. And in my child brain, that was like a labyrinth. I'm like, Mom, what is that movie where people are in this bright desert maze? And she didn't understand what I was asking. And then
It's not that intuitive, I guess. Maybe you're thinking Labyrinth.
yeah, yeah. Was David Bowie in it? Um, that, but that is great. So now we had the Bad Batch premiere, and to my shock, I think with conversation with you, I found out They snuck a second episode in uh, last week, so I had to catch up. So my first question is, what are your initial thoughts after watching this?
Um, Initial thoughts are, I think they are way cooler in this one episode than they were in the 3 or 4 episode arc of the Clone Wars. And so I only saw it once. I only saw it a year ago. But really, I felt like you don't remember that D. Bradley Baker is probably just talking to himself in a voice booth for hours or days. But the depth of character that we get from all the different characters from, I think in the first Clone Wars episodes, they're very much Tech is the smart guy and Wrecker's the destroyer, and they fall into their box and they don't leave it. But then you see Wrecker's got stuffed animals, and Echo is dealing with his past. So I think it's creating a very dynamic, almost even more dynamic side of the clones than we've seen before.
Yeah, I do like that your point that it's the same voice actor kind of talking to himself, just like a lunatic sitting there in a phone booth. Um, but it is kind of interesting because I had a similar thought where when the Clone Wars final season was coming out, I did not care about these characters, and it did kind of feel like the show was just spinning its wheels. Like it clearly had all of its budget on the Siege of Mandalore.
And that's all we wanted. That could have gone all 12 episodes.
Yeah, and it felt like everything else was just kind of filler. I don't even remember what happens in the middle. Like there's the Bad Batch episodes. There's like Ahsoka is like wandering like a junkyard for 3 episodes or something like that.
Yeah,
and then yeah, but so I went in with zero expectations. I didn't even bother looking up trailers or spoilers because I just did not honestly care about these characters. I just knew, oh well, I'll watch it because I have Disney Plus, and I was really surprised. I was really surprised. It's it very much feels like the Clone Wars again. Would you say?
I definitely would. And to mirror your point earlier, I remember it had to be close to a year ago now when they announced the Bad Batch show. I was like, what? What are they gonna do? We're just gonna see clone troopers do more stuff, and I still don't know where the show is going.
Yeah, I think we were talking about this earlier, where it does feel like Star Wars is falling into this narrative pattern of characters meet a small child and then meander until they figure out what the plot is.
For sure. I'm looking forward to seeing what they're doing. Obviously, there's something special.
But you know what's really interesting though, that has some potential, is unlike the baby Yoda here, Omega can talk and respond. Like we can actually get into the mind of this child character in this series, so that could be an interesting difference.
For sure. I want to know obviously everyone wants to know, but what her deal is and why she's so special to, I'm still going to call them the Kaminoans. I know they call them Kaminoans, but to the Kaminoans, because kind of, skipping to the end of the first episode, the one in red, Lama Su, maybe, lets her go. She pushes the button to stop the door from closing.
Absolutely. And we know that what's really interesting, and I think the Clone Wars did this super well, I think Bad Batch is already doing it pretty well, is unlike the prequels, I think they're nailing the balance of politics and just kind of fun adventure, because you can tell there's just like this, what would be considered kind of boring for a kids show, this politics of well, it's kind of expensive to have clones, so let's move our budgetary resources here and there. And the long necks, was that what they called them in I keep confusing them with what was that, Land Before Time, where they called all the Brachiosaurus characters long necks.
It might have been. I remember a little bit. That's about it.
But you know, these guys, they have an ulterior motive as well, which is, you know, we want to keep that money flowing. I know this is not the direction they're going, but part of me thinks it would be really clever and really true to like a financial contract that they would make Omega simply to be like, oh look, we can also do service industry clones. This is a medical coding and billing clone, very good at medical billing.
Well, and I mean, they actually touched on the contracts a little bit. When is he Admiral now? He's Admiral Tarkin. He's not Moff yet. Or
Oh
Grand
man, that's a good catch. I was not paying attention. I do love how petty he is. I feel like cartoon Tarkin is a different character than movie Tarkin.
Yeah, I think he's still very much out for what's the best for him to make
Yeah.
good in Palpatine's eyes. But he even, when he's talking to the head mistress of the Kaminoans, she says, our contract is, you know, we have a contract. And he said, you had a contract with the Republic. We're the Empire now, which, you know, I guess if Palpatine's ruling the courts, we know how that would hold up. But
Yeah,
it
and
was
then
interesting.
like if they release a Star Wars Detours, it's like, oh no, we're a shopping mall now. Your contract is with Borders Books.
Yeah.
They're no longer in business.
And it's interesting to see the, I guess, very fast transition into the Empire. You know,
Yeah.
clearly Order 66 was more than just execute the Jedi, because now all the clones are, it seemed like battle droids almost. You know, it's
Yeah, I was gonna ask, what are your thoughts on I feel like Order 66 was always pretty nebulous. Like in Revenge of the Sith, it was never clear. Are they just following an order? Are they, you know, are the clones,
good soldiers follow orders.
yeah, are they just good soldiers, or are they brainwashed in some way? And Clone Wars helped clear that up a little bit. I think this Bad Batch finally made it abundantly clear, no subtext, what is going on in terms of the clones and ordering some of those secret orders. So I was going to ask what your thoughts were on that process, and then how that applies to spoilers, Crosshair.
Yeah, I mean, by episode, going back to, I watched episode 2 6 times. By episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, I knew everything there was to know about Star Wars. Like, I was full in it. So I had played some card games and miniature games, and I'm pretty sure, you know, we even knew Order 66 was a thing. And you know, for 10-year-old me in 2005, it was just crazy. Oh, this is the end of the Jedi. But thinking about it, the one question I've always had, and maybe you can jog my memory for how Crosshair, but they have to hear, I guess, execute Order 66 in order to have that switch flip. And so, remind me, where does the Bad Batch hear it? Does anyone say it to them?
You know, I was just thinking about that this morning. I was kind of revisiting the second episode, because that goes into question of, in the second episode, they meet a character who was
Cut.
long ago seen in the Clone Wars. Would he be affected
Yeah.
by
And
that same implant? Because it didn't seem like he cared about the Jedi. You would think if there was some sort of brainwashing, that even if he wasn't in the vicinity or able to act on it, he would be very like opinionated, or very like rah Empire. So I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if it's just something that is triggered in them, or if it is something that they do have to hear it. If they have to hear it, do they have to hear it from the Emperor's voice? Could like what is his name, Masamida, give Order 66? Be like, listen, the Emperor is not having a good day. He had too much Taco Bell. Anyway, execute Order 65.
And that's the one where they all do hugs instead.
Yeah.
No, it makes me wonder because there's, I mean, they even say in the show there's thousands of worlds. There's the Jedi Order is not small, so you wonder, is it a chain of command? I get it in the movie. They're telling the, number one, the commanders that are with our heroes, but number two, it seems like he kind of Palpatine delivers the order to the people and on the Jedi Council. So then it comes
Yeah.
into question: are the troopers then filling it down, or I always hear people joke, is Palpatine calling all 2,000 clone commanders at once to report to him?
Yeah. Yeah, he's just very tired by the end of it. His voice is very raspy,
Yeah.
raspier than usual. I'm not sure, and it was kind of something where I was thinking specifically when they mentioned, Crosshair still has a kind of working implant chip. Let's get that up and running. Where I'm just kind of like, well, they were doing a good job with the politics in terms of the finances and the financial duress the Kaminoans were under. Uh, I kind of felt like, why does Crosshair need an implant chip? Why can't he simply be like a different opinion than the others, right? Sometimes people are just kind of jerks in real life. Um, so that was something where I'm just like, yeah, it's a can of worms that I feel like it would have been more dramatically interesting to have Crosshair just be a jerk.
Yeah, and side with them rather than being
Yeah.
forced over.
Yeah, because they were doing, I think in the first episode, they were doing a really good job of setting up that difference of opinion between them anyway. I feel like he didn't even need that to kind of go over
Yeah,
the edge.
the boost his aggressive levels in the machine.
Yeah.
You know?
So
I
that was another thing about Crosshair I noticed. He almost never does like real sniper stuff. He's always like running around with this giant sniper rifle, shooting at things 2 feet in front of him.
Yeah,
Uh,
he was. I liked him on top of the tower.
yes.
Uh, at a certain point, you're wondering how much do they need the rest of them? If you
Yeah.
got a sniper with a multi-mile long, precision shot, can't he just take everyone out?
That was also kind of one of the difficulties with the Clone Wars as a whole. Ever since the 2D Clone Wars was in the movies, the Jedi are, they're just good warriors. I think in Phantom Menace, Anakin has a misunderstanding that the Jedi can't be killed, and then of course Qui-Gon gets killed at the end of that. And we show the Jedi as kind of just like argumentative and just the same kind of difference of opinion that regular people have. And then in Attack of the Clones, like the Jedi, a whole army of Jedi basically get their asses handed to them by the droids before the clones come in. And then of course in Revenge of the Sith, all the Jedi get killed. So I think the movies show one depiction of the Jedi, whereas the Clone Wars show a radically different. It shows the Jedi as these nigh invulnerable things that can just wave their arm and throw the entire droid army into the river. So I found it really interesting to see Order 66 from that perspective of, well, it's kind of hard to believe that, what was it, in the beginning of the Bad Batch? How many clones were there? Like 6 or 7? 6 or 7 clones can shoot down a Jedi Master.
The explanation for that I've heard is, all of these people, Qaeda Mundi and Stassa Lee, and they've been fighting with their commanders for however officially long Clone Wars is, like 3 to 5 years. So even if they had sensed it through the Force, that they're still stunned and not understanding what's going on, which I guess in a sense explains how, Bly is able to turn Ayla Secura into blue goo underneath the flower on Felicia with no effort.
I guess so. But then you also have the Bad Batch, and they come in, and It's like, all right, Wrecker's gonna come in, he's gonna destroy this whole squad of battle droids. You know, it reminds me of those really great 80s cartoons where, all right, we have a new toy, coming down the chain. You need to make a scene in an episode where this new toy beats all the bad guys.
Oh, I loved the linking the AATs together and just pushing them off the cliff and dragging them all down. Like, you know, it's refreshing to see new ways to abuse droids.
Yeah, we don't have droids anymore now.
Yeah, I guess. I wonder if we're gonna find out what happens to them. Tarkin says that the separatists are defeated. So, you know, clearly they got folded under. And then also going back a second, I don't know how much more we're ever going to see about Order 66. You know, we're probably going to see it from different perspectives throughout time, but the Clone Wars covered it pretty thoroughly as far as how and why and the chips. So I don't know if we're going to get any more explanation outside of that.
Yeah, the only thing that they could do, and I feel like they touched it in Rebels, is a continual, like, what is the thought process of a clone? Especially, I don't know if this is going to be an ongoing series or if Bad Batch is a one-off, but at some point the clones do get decommissioned, and they do just use like random folks as stormtroopers.
Yeah.
So what do they do with those clones? Do they just like wait and let them die off? Do they execute the clones? I actually don't know the lore behind that.
I mean, in the expanded universe, the clones, because of their accelerated growth cycle, have a fairly short life expectancy. And so I couldn't remember exactly what that was, but in some of the latest novels that were published before the merger or the acquisition, Boba Fett was like 60 or something, and he was one of the last living clones because everything got sped up. So they were, you know, capping out around 40, stuff like that.
I mean, even then, there would be a point at which, regardless of how fast the clones age, there's going to be a point at which their bodies grow old and deteriorate. They can't be soldiers anymore. At that point, do they retire? I can't imagine the Empire would let a clone with all the secrets retire.
They
Do they
spend their
just
money. They think of them as property.
like I'm seeing the end of the Bad Batch kind of being like a Blade Runner. We're just gonna see a hunter in the replicant role, and you need to have like a Deckard character hunt him down.
See, I was thinking it's more going to end on like Omega and Wrecker and Hunter on a beach in Naboo, just sipping on Mai Tais, living out their days watching the sunset by the lake.
That's another thing I often think back on, because it never really gets touched on too much, is I'm always curious what happened to Naboo. You know, they had a big war, and we don't really hear much from them after that.
So this is spoiler alert for one of the books. I can't remember which one. I think it's Bloodlines.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Princess Leia centered book, which is, they're all great. But she, when she's younger, she goes to Naboo, the Imperial controlled Naboo, because that's where Palpatine was from. So that's still his homeworld. And she meets some Imperial rank, Panaka, whose first name is Quash, Quash.
Oh my gosh, whatever. So this is what happened to that guy?
Yeah. And there's a scene, you know, pardon the spoiler, but they're in one of the palaces, and, you know, he sees Leia and is like, I know exactly who you look like. And then there's some explosion, and he never gets the ability to tell anyone. But like, there's that recognition, and I think that's the only time we visited Naboo again.
So they're kind of just a standard Imperial planet.
Yeah.
I suppose. We need to know what happens to Jar Jar.
It's been what, 20, no, 16 years, and we still don't have an answer. Where do
You
you think
know,
he is? That's what I want.
yeah, I heard a thing that non-canon, he's in some video game like on Coruscant just standing there. Um, Beyond that, I don't know. I've always been really curious as to what George's original plan for Jar Jar was. Like, if there was no backlash, if Jar Jar had just been the beloved comedic sidekick that he wanted him to be, what was the plan for that character?
That's a good point. I wonder if he was meant to substitute for 3PO,
Yeah,
like be the sidekick. But I mean, at the end of Revenge of the Sith, he's still a senator,
yeah,
as
he's
far
just
as
kind
we
of
know.
there.
So I guess the boring answer would be he gets enveloped into the Imperial Senate.
they they find out some things about his past, and he gets arrested for like a corruption or something.
Yeah, well, he'd be branded a terrorist, the bomb
Yeah,
bad senator.
I'm trying to think like what, because overall I think I really like these two episodes, and they do raise a lot of questions as well as opening some of these cans of worms about like the Star Wars lore. Where do you think the show will go based on how it started?
That's one I don't know. I think not watching any trailers, I've heard stuff about some Moff, but I think Hunter, no, the sniper, Crosshair is going to hunt them across the galaxy. I can't see any other. It's your own ally turned enemy. Um, but as far as quest, what are they going to do? They can go to the outer reaches of the galaxy.
Yeah.
I don't think outside of Crosshair and his immediate higher ups that they're a priority. I think Omega's the priority.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I can picture them playing with is um, revealing what the agenda of that red long neck character is, because we know something's going on there. There's something going on.
Yeah.
I was thinking like as a wild theory that this is probably their hint at what Mandalorian is hinting at, which is the build up to the Clone Emperor project, creating a force sensitive clone. But even then, I don't know where that story goes, because we know it ends with just and Snoke was a thing that existed. Secrets only the Sith knew.
Yeah.
So I don't know what kind of satisfying ending that trail of breadcrumbs could lead to.
I first seeing Omega, I mean, any character we see, it's Star Wars. You're like, they're a main character. They've got to be force sensitive. But I don't think Omega is, because if the Kaminoans were able to successfully make a force sensitive clone on purpose, then that would probably speed up Palpatine's, goal from episode 9 to the end of episode 3.
Yeah.
Like, I
Well,
feel like,
and we see that they're still working on that in The Mandalorian, so it's quite
yeah.
possible that they started trying it and just in the beta test stage, and it takes a while. But does this make Snoke one of the Bad Batch? He is a not good clone.
He is a force sensitive clone, though.
Well, that's what I mean. He's not
Yeah.
the perfect Tamura Morrison clone that makes him de
Oh,
facto.
does he qualify? Okay.
Yeah, does he qualify as the Bad Batch?
I mean, if 99 does, I don't see why Snoke he should get an honorary Black Pauldron.
All right, this is the game plan. Disney needs to make a show called Too Many Snokes, and it's a band of Snokes after Exegol that are just kind of like sitting around waiting for orders. They don't know what to do, so they go off on their own in their cool Bad Batch armor, and it's basically just a scam to sell some of the lingering Snoke merchandise. You just repackage it.
Bathrobes.
Yeah.
See, now I would like to see the opening of that show with, Exegol is destroyed, the final order is done, and you just see, one of the hands reach out of the pickle jar that he's stored
Oh,
in, and then, the other 4 or 5 come together. I think it's a comedy. I think the Too Many Snokes is almost like a Three Stooges physical comedy show.
I definitely thought, like, after seeing Rise of Skywalker, trying to think about where the story could go, I definitely thought it would be funny to see like a Snoke who's still out there, just like not
Forgotten.
being sure what to do, and it can't really like talk on its own because it doesn't have that connection to the Emperor, and it just kind of like wanders around, and some family takes him in, or
Our foster Snoke. That's
yeah.
a good theory.
I'm going to be very curious to see how this show pans out, because it feels a lot like the early days of The Mandalorian, where once you get past the fact that I'm impressed, I'm really surprised, this show is really really good, and then you start to realize, oh well, what's the story gonna be? And I know in The Mandalorian there were a couple episodes in the first season where you're like, are they just gonna wander around the whole season? And then at the end it really catches up and picks up the pace. So I wonder if that's going to happen here too.
Yeah, well, and I don't know if you were at the Mandalorian panel at Celebration in Chicago, but they showed like a 2.5 minute sizzle reel, and I'm not a huge trailer guy, but I watch the stuff when I'm there. No one had any idea. No one knew that Baby Yoda was a thing. No one, we thought this was going to be badass Pedro Pascal in a helmet bounty hunting across the galaxy, with IG-11 and, all this stuff. And it very quickly turned into, foster dad doing everything he can to protect his little baby.
See, and
So,
now we're in the same position where we don't know where it's going to go now that they don't have the Baby Yoda.
yeah. And the Mandalorian. Yeah.
Uh,
Really interesting. I think we're getting Book of Boba Fett before we're getting Mando 3.
I think that's correct.
We'll see. It'll be interesting. I know of the 10-second teaser I saw, I'm pretty sure we see Fennec Shand in the Bad Batch.
Yeah, what characters do you hope and dream will show up in the Bad Batch?
I mean, I don't think it's too much of a hope anymore, but definitely Rex.
You want to see Rex? Okay.
Yeah, I really want to see where he goes. Like, his world got destroyed too.
Mm-hmm.
He's aware he's got something going on with Ahsoka, partnership lying in wait. We got to figure out how he gets to a desert planet with Gregor and Wolf hunting worms. Who else would I like to see? I don't think we're going to see Caleb Doom again. I think that was kind of a little Easter egg. I don't know, maybe explore some of the underworld a little bit more. We have these characters who essentially are going to be flying under the radar. From now until then, maybe they'll run into Jabba. Who knows? They've got a unique set of skills and a ship. So I could see them, getting involved with I think their moral compass is too strong to do bounty hunting, but
you want to see that big worm lady from the Solo movie.
Yeah, Lady Proxima.
That was her name, yes.
Yep.
That would actually be really cool.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll make it to Corellia.
I don't, I'm at this point, they're making so many like sequels and prequels and interquels. I'm actually kind of lost myself on the timeline. So like, who is alive from that time period or is active at that point? Is the Rogue One crew like active yet, or are they just kind of like Muppet babies?
Yeah, I think they'd all be pretty young, because Cassian says, I've been fighting this fight since I was 6 years old. Unless he was fighting the Republic or the Separatist, either or that puts him in and around 6, you know, at
Mhm.
this time period. Um, Jin is not much older because stormtroopers come and take Galen away when she's very young.
We know that Warwick Davis character from Phantom Menace is around.
We do have, oh, what's his name? Uh, we
He
have,
went from just I want to hear his backstory. I was just I was just a bystander. I was content just spending my money on pod races. But now I see what the Empire has done.
I think I would have to check this, but I think it's confirmed that his character in Solo is Weasel from episode 1. So I don't think he allied with the Empire.
Oh no! Oh yeah, absolutely. I know that because I got the action figure.
Is there a 3 3/4
Yes,
Weasel?
there is
Okay.
a weasel, and it's really good. He fits on the back of the Enfys Nest speeder.
Beautiful, beautiful. So I have a Bad Batch question for you.
Okay.
All of, I don't know, 2 or 6 episodes in, if you count the Clone Wars, do you have a favorite member and why?
Oh, you know what? I'm going to reserve on that because I feel like Echo has not really been used in the Bad Batch yet. I feel like he's gonna get an episode or two to shine. Um, Hunter, I don't know. I do kind of like Hunter because I find him ridiculous in a great way. You know, depending on the camera angle, he's either like Snake from Escape from New York or he's a Stallone, and either one of those is ridiculous, and I love it. Um, and then I just love that they have a nerd like with glasses, and then he puts like more glasses on top of his glasses that he needs.
Yeah, I saw. I don't even remember what the line was. I think it's in episode 2, but it's a meme with Kenobi at the end of episode 3 with Tech, and he says, "Of course, Emperor Palpatine is Darth Sidious," and he goes, "You know that the whole time?" And he goes, "Of course, I thought everyone knew." Because he totally pulls that on them. They're
You
like,
know what? Here's the
"Oh, yes."
lore. He's gonna wind up being the dad or grandpa, whatever the timeline is of uh, Mary's character from Rise of Skywalker, and that's why he can pop up and say like, "Oh yes, it was clones. Secrets only the Sith knew. I thought everyone knew that." You know, and then everyone in the crew like turns away and ignores him, like
Yeah.
whatever.
Probably. Do we know? Okay, I was about to ask, but we know that clones can procreate unless Cut is a adoptive father. Is there any other instances of clones having children that we know of?
Oh, that is. I don't think we know that. No, we do. Ray is the daughter of a clone.
That's true.
Yeah. Now, granted,
Easy to
that is
get.
an advanced clone, so maybe they had to.
Yeah. I mean, you also got to think there's that clone bar on Coruscant. That wasn't on the top floor. There's some backdoor dealings going on there too. So probably a couple clone offspring running around the galaxy.
Yeah, I mean that could be a thing. I mean, you could have essentially like it reminds me of Game of Thrones. You could have these bastard clone children running around the galaxy somewhere or another.
As if they need any more reason to be shunned by the galaxy at large.
Yeah. So yeah, I think for the Bad Batch, I'm looking forward to kind of seeing what the ramifications for the clones are, like in general, what happens to these dudes. Um, and yeah, I'm sure we'll get some really cool like cameos throughout. They've been doing pretty good at getting those cameos in there.
Yeah, I'll go back to your question because I didn't have a good person who I actually want to see, but Cad Bane. He I think is one of the coolest characters introduced in the Clone Wars, especially if they're going to be exploring any kind of underworld stuff. Uh, he's even playing with the big boys, in the Clone Wars. So
You know, I'm gonna put a pin on that and follow you up on that, because I remember there were plans to kill Cad Bane.
really,
It never made it in the Clone Wars. I don't know the details. Supposedly there's going to be some sort of story arc with him and Boba Fett, and that would be like the end of Cad Bane. I don't know if they did this in the comics or anything like that, but it would be cool because we don't know their lifespan to see him show up in the Book of Boba Fett, and maybe they could integrate some of those plans into Book of Boba Fett.
for sure. Cad Bane and Embo. Embo was also
Ooh,
one of my favorites from the Clone Wars.
ooh, Embo and Constable Zuvio team up.
You've been waiting 6 years for that appearance, haven't you?
I was so happy when Constable Zuvio, well, his costume showed up in Mandalorian. And then I think maybe it was Pablo Hidalgo, but one of the big time Star Wars people on Twitter jokingly confirmed that that was Constable Zuvio. So I'm like, yes, now is Zuvio's time to shine.
I think that was one of the very few figures that I didn't pluck off the shelf once it dropped to $5.
You
I was like,
didn't?
no, I don't think so. No, he's not on my Black Series shelf. What am I
You're
gonna do with him?
uh I think right now he's my only Black Series from Force Awakens.
Oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I picked them all up when they went down to $5.
Nice. Yeah, it's so tempting. So but this will go into another, I'm going to put a pin in that because this will go into another thing I want to talk about. But one character I really want to see in the Bad Batch, and I hope this happens because I know that Dave Filoni is very much into doing these things. I want to see the Tonica sisters in there,
Okay.
because we have one surviving actress. I think her name is Angela. Is Angela Staines the one who's still with us?
I could have not named either of those
Yeah.
actresses.
Unfortunately, one of them passed away, but the other one is still with us and has recently gotten pretty active in like the like being interested in the fact that there is such a big fan community. Um, so it would be really cool if they could bring her back for like a line to do like a line reading for this background character.
That would be cool. I don't know anything about them. I think they were in the Tales of the Mos Eisley Cantina series. And don't they have some special like throwing needle, some poisonous needle? That's the only thing I could tell you.
I know in that book that you brought up, they did a kind of a storyline where there were these two outlaws, and they take the place. They pretend to be the Tonica sisters, and that's who you see at the cantina. But obviously, that's not really canon. And the fact that you only really see them at the cantina, it's like, well, it's still the same,
Yeah, so
same nameless
there's my
lady at the bar.
Cantina character.
Yeah.
Now I know the real ones are elsewhere. That's awesome. I actually had the pleasure of meeting D. Bradley Baker in it might have been the last Celebration Orlando. I think before Reed Pop took over, everyone who wasn't Mark Carey and it might have just been those two, they were out on the floor. There was still an autograph hall, but there was just tables that you could walk up to. And so if there was, it was up to the actor, but if they weren't signing and just sitting there, you could go up and talk with them and take pictures. And I was younger, I was still kid age, probably 12, 13, 14. But my brother and I went up there and in the voice, he goes, "Come here, soldiers," and, the whole 9 yards. And it was just super cool. I don't remember having a conversation with him, but he stayed in character and you could tell he enjoys what he does.
Nice. So I wanted to awkwardly transition into the next topic that I'd like to talk about, which is from a collecting perspective. What have you gotten recently, if anything?
Yeah, my most recent Star Wars purchase is actually something you and I talk often, but I haven't showed you this. My
Oh,
dad frequents flea markets
oh,
in Tampa, and so sometimes he'll see stuff and send it to me, and send me pictures. And he sent me a picture of a Star Wars bowl, but the bowl is the face of a Wampa ice monster face up. So like the teeth are the rim of the bowl. And I said, I've seen some weird Star Wars stuff, and that just about tops the list. And he's like, it's $15. And I was like, I need it. For that price, I need it. And so I will be picking it up, and when I go back to Tampa, I'll see how feasible it is to eat cereal around the teeth that are protruding.
wait,
But
they're like molded, like the teeth are molded
yeah,
in
it's
your
like
way.
ceramic. So it's his head, and he's like coming up like the space slug, and so the teeth are like little triangles around the bowl. So that would have to qualify as my most recent Star Wars purchase.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with a weird one, and this is why I said I was gonna put a pin in it. But I was informed online that a Tonica Sisters beer existed. Uh, and I had this confirmed. It's actually a cider. It's a blood orange cider. So I just drove around yesterday, Southern California, to find a place that was selling it. And sure enough, you can go into a Bevmo and purchase. It's in Target too, so you could get this background side character uh, at a store in 2021, and it is the greatest thing ever.
That's the beauty of Star Wars right there.
um, but yeah, other than that, oh, here's the other cool thing. Not so much the stuff that was cool, but the fact that I went into a toy store last week. On May the 4th, there is a toy store that opened in Glendale that is an actual, honest to goodness toy store and not a toy section at another store. And I purchased a Black Series figure. They had I think it was one of the Knights of Ren, one of the generic ones. And then I purchased a Bandai model kit.
Did what kit did you get?
Stormtrooper.
Okay, and then I think the only Knight of Ren I know is Grenade Face.
Yeah, there's I think the vintage collection, because for Black Series, mostly I just get characters that aren't available in a 3 3/4. But I think vintage collection had guy with scarves coming down his head, and then Black Series had fencing mask face.
Yeah.
I know they're supposed to have names, but I have not memorized them.
I mean, all you need to do is pose them, is have them standing, staring menacingly into the distance.
I still really enjoy picturing those guys like getting out of their ship in like dressed all in black in thick layers with these giant like weapons, probably strapped to their backs, and then climbing in the desert on top of this like on top of this rock just to like stand around.
Well, maybe they feel on the inside the way they look on the outside. They want to be deep and brooding, and they're like, guys, we have to do this. It's part of the shtick. Kylo's the master of darkness, so we got to do him proud.
That would be funny. Like these are kind of the poser fans of Kylo Ren, and they are just like Instagram models. They're like Instagram dudes, and they're like, all right, we got to get this drone shot while we're here.
I was thinking more like the emo kids from South Park, where they're like, I'm such a nonconformist, I'm not going to conform to nonconformity, and they reject everything.
So actually, since you know a lot of the lore, what is the lore behind those guys?
You've got me on that one.
Or is it not clear?
No, as I think they might be explored in some of the comics, but I think that they would only be explored in the preceding before episode 9 came out. Um, I don't think we know anything really about them. If I had to guess, I would assume that they were other students from Luke's Jedi Academy.
Yeah, that was I feel like the sequel trilogy has a lot of that in there where it is kind of like they explain something in a vague way and then they think that they've fully explained it, right? I remember back when Force Awakens was first coming out and they showed off the weird lightsaber Kylo Ren has, and everyone was like thinking like, oh, did he just make it himself and it wasn't very good and that's why like the things come out the side? And the explanation from the movie doesn't explain it, but the explanation on some of the packaging materials was, oh, he has a lightsaber as weird and twisted as his mind. And it's like, well, that's not really an explanation. And I think the Knights of Ren are the same thing, where I think a lot of fans think or thought, oh, these are some other students that were sided with Kylo Ren instead of Luke, but that wasn't confirmed, I don't think. Or
Well,
at least
and
not in the movie.
no, and even Snoke, I think it's the first time we meet Snoke in Force Awakens. Talking to Kylo, and he goes, "You, the master of the Knights of Ren." Like he puts gravity into that. Like he, at least in Force Awakens, makes it sound like he's this leader of this elite group. Rather, he's not like, oh, these are some schlubby Jedi Padawans who followed you.
Yeah,
He's
and how
like,
come they don't have lightsabers, right?
yeah.
If they were Luke students, I mean, maybe they didn't make them yet, but
It'll be interesting. One thing we can always count on Star Wars for is eventually giving us backstories, somewhere down the line. And they're such cool designs. Like they really are, I think.
mm,
I don't think they look very campy. We'll probably get more info on them at some point.
there was a theory going around when Last Jedi came out, and I actually like this better than them showing up again in 9, which was, oh, the Knights of Ren were the people who followed Kylo Ren, right? So they're force sensitive. They trained with Luke. But they were a ragtag team who did this little coup and ran away. But then eventually they got caught up in the First Order, and then they became the Praetorian Guard. And I'm just like, oh, I kind of like that, where they just kind of like they start off with a lot of emotion and a lot of ideology, and then they just kind of become these like I guess you'd say conformist like tools for the First Order.
But then we see him in episode 9.
That's
So
what I mean. Like I like that theory before Last Jedi came out better than when they showed up again in 9.
yeah, the Praetorian Guards were badasses.
Oh
Like,
yeah. I think the Praetorian Guard was what the Knights of Ren should have been.
I think everybody thinks that.
Yeah, like I think the Knights of Ren fight scene at the end, I'm sure it was allegedly. We'll put an allegedly in there, but it feels like that scene was very chopped up, whether that be like a production issue or in the edit. But it just kind of felt like they had to put something in there, and they rushed this battle at the end, and they had different plans for them.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and watch it. I love me my Star Wars, but I think I watched it twice in theaters and made it halfway through it once at home. So it's definitely the one I'm the least knowledgeable on still.
I feel like I feel like a lot of people are still not very knowledgeable on that one. We were talking about your favorite discovery in episode 9.
Oh man, you're gonna have to jog my memory.
Which was what happened to Dengar, the question everyone had on their minds.
The question everyone wanted to know.
Yeah.
No, I don't even know how I came across that. I was reading some Reddit post and someone's like, there's a character named Rage Den or
Yeah.
something. And It looks awkwardly like him if his head was pickled for the last 15 years.
It's like a robot version of the Pinhead from Puppet Master.
Oh God.
You know, if you look through that making of Rise of Skywalker book, it really makes you feel like I wish the concept designers could just make their own movie, because that would be ridiculous.
Oh yeah, even prior to Force Awakens coming out, I never bought any of the magazines, but I saw some of the pictures from like Vanity Fair from the creature shop, which I guess for Force Awakens would have been mostly Maz's castle. But there are some baller characters. Even I mean, they clearly have used some. The big walrus guy with the
Mhm.
chin tusk, they wound up reusing that for Fallen Order. Like,
Yeah,
should become one of the bad guys that you fight.
I uh I feel like when you look at some of the promotional imagery from the creature shop of Canto Bite, that looks like what I imagine a live action Studio Ghibli movie to look like.
Yeah, there's some great designs. There's other really weird ones, but I wonder what, back in 1977, what people thought about those characters. There's a werewolf in the
Mhm.
background,
Well, not
butt
anymore.
things.
They've removed the werewolf.
Did they? They took them out?
I think that was some in the special editions. They shoved something in front of them.
And then you also just have the worm at the bar.
Yeah.
A Federer fan. Like, none of it made any sense.
Yeah. And honestly, I do feel like in any other situation, those would have just been flavor and we would have forgotten about them. But I think the fact that Star Wars was such a phenomenon, and at the same time you had these toys and products come out at the same time, where kids were really hungry for product, um, it really kind of reinforced in the fans' minds, like, oh, this is a thing I should pay attention to. Like normally I wouldn't care about, you know, someone at the bar, but I see this snaggletooth toy and I'm
Yeah.
reinforced when I see it again in the movie. Um, I think Star Wars fans have just been conditioned to look for these weird things.
Well, and I like the story behind those, original Cantina characters was the guys and girls at Kenner. Unlike today, they didn't get screen grabs of the movie. They weren't given screenshots. So they went into the movie theater and took pictures. And so that's why none of the colors look anything like the characters. That's why, all the alien designs are pretty spot on, but you have these crazy, designs of these characters and why some got made and others not.
Yeah, that is something. I know the trend now for toys, which isn't a bad thing, is it needs to either be overly stylized like a Funko Pop, or it needs to be incredibly accurate like a Hot Toys. But I really have a fondness for that somewhere in the middle where they get it like, we get it about 70% on the mark. One of my favorite toy lines as a kid was Jurassic Park,
Okay.
and none of those were accurate at all. I remember there was a Dennis Nedry whose arms came off, which on top of just that being the wrong character, it's Sam Jackson whose arm gets eaten off or something. But his arms come off and they give him these giant Terminator glasses, because I think they didn't know who was playing him at the time. And I think in the script he was fat, but they didn't know how fat. So he's just like a standard action figure, but just a little bit chubby. So he was definitely my favorite. They do the same with Lost World Eddie Carr, I think, who was like the chubby bald dude from the West Wing. And they made him into this like dinosaur hunter guy with all
Probably
the
all
dinosaur
old
gear.
gold left over from something else in the factory.
Absolutely. And you know what they're doing? There's actually been a lot of retro toys coming out. Masters of the Universe is doing their Origins line, which is just kind of a redo of the original figures. and Star Wars is doing the retro collection, which is a redo of the original ones. But I would love to see someone do a 90s retro toy where everyone's like buffed out. They have battle. There's always battle damage and like robot parts, and their shirts are all ripped up.
And I was gonna say giant guns, but we got that with the Force Awakens line. Like all of those toys had some backpack armament.
Oh my gosh, that was good. I'm working on a custom now, so I purchased another Force Awakens toy, and yet those were ridiculous. It was like a Build-A-Figure, but build a backpack.
Yeah,
it's not in the film, but build a backpack that can go on the sky.
It's crazy. I think one more thing on vintage figures, and I'm the nerd who saw this in the teaser trailer at Star Wars Celebration, but they're previewing episode of Clone Wars, the ones with Ahsoka and the sisters, and Ahsoka's speeder bike starts dying, and she's going down one of the holes in Coruscant, and she starts like force jumping or flying over a couple different speeders, and in the speeders you see the Rhodian and Walrus Man and Hammerhead, and they're dressed in the color scheme of their Kenner vintage figures. Like Walrus Man has the blue sleeves and the orange shirt, and Greedo's dressed in all green. And I was like, I'm the only person on the planet that like recognized that, in that it's like a half a second scene that you see them all. But I have such love for those vintage figures. It was just instantly clicked.
I love that stuff. And you just got for the vintage figures, you got the Ben Kenobi throwback, right?
I did. Still debating if I'm gonna open him yet.
Oh, you haven't opened him yet?
I have not. I'm a pretty serial figure opener.
Yeah.
There's only a few that I leave in the box, but the box is beautiful, and that's why he's still in there.
Yeah, someone pointed out to me, like nowadays, in terms of commercial goods, apparently a lot of these toys are intended more as trading cards. It's intended to be left in the box. I don't know where I heard that. I heard someone mention that in regards to Super 7. Like a lot of their reaction figures are designed with card art in mind first, and the figure second. And then when I looked again at Super 7's line, that makes a lot of sense because their card art is beautiful.
Well, I know I've commented on some of the stuff you've shown me. I think from the vintage collection, like some of the Mandalorian stuff, those cards are beautiful. I know in the Black Series, they've started doing the mural on the sides of the boxes. But when I see people they have shelves of like the original Black Series box with just the black and red names. Yeah. And they've got all lined up like you would the spine of a book. It's like, what's the point of that?
Yeah, like I felt like Black Series was overdue for a package overhaul. I'm really happy they went with this mural. Even just changing up the colors and angling the package, it just gives it something. The original black boxes were, like now that you see the new ones, you really can't go back.
Yeah.
You can't go back to those old ones.
I used to cut the pictures. My first toy line was, I don't know what the line was called, but it was the Attack of the Clones line, where they completely ditched the 5 POA. Instead, they're all locked in a battle position. And I used to cut the pictures of the characters out and like tape them to the inside of my my toy box.
See, it's super fun because the toy line I grew up with was the Power of the Force 2, where everyone was super muscular.
Yeah.
And I just have a great deal of fondness for that line because, I grew up with it. But then, it's really funny what different people are nostalgic for. So anyway, I think we're nearing the end. So are there any final thoughts that you would like to leave us on?
Final thoughts. Prediction for episode 3 of the Bad Batch is the sniper. He's going to shoot one of them pretty hard. someone's going down. I don't think they're gonna die, but that's just shot from the hip prediction. He's gonna tag one of them.
Okay, so you think there's going to be a big change up. So we'll follow up and see if that happens. But anyway, thanks for participating and joining. We hope to have you back soon.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.